started soon. So I wanted to just say a quick hello to a few of the persons who we have in the room with us. We do have about 20 persons who are registered for today's session. So I'm hoping to see everyone turn out. But let me say hello to Saron, our CorpSec here at CCGI. Nice to have you in the meeting with us, Saron.
Hi, Kamala. How
Hi,
are you?
hi.
Hi, Gayle.
And hello and good morning again to Lygia Wilson. Lygia has attended a few sessions here with us at CCGI in the past. I'm so happy to see that she keeps returning. So how are you doing, Lygia?
I'm fine, thank you. Hello to everyone.
Nice. Lygia, we look forward to your organization considering membership with us.
Actually, I did speak to my MD this morning and he told me to go ahead and register. So as a member.
Okay.
So
Nice. But we have to discuss a membership for the organization.
right. So we'll
Because
discuss it.
in that case, you would have been free to attend today.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, nice. And let me say hello to Karen Gonzalez. Um, Karen, I don't recall meeting you in one of our sessions before. Is this your first time with us?
Yes, it is. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So tell us a little bit, Karen, which organization are you from?
Well, I'm just a curious onlooker. I'm a self-employed attorney.
All right. Yes. I recall seeing the registration now. Well, it's lovely to have attorneys being interested in this function of the corporate secretary because the majority of corporate secretary for the larger organizations are themselves also attorneys. So it's one of the potential growth paths.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so happy to have you for our session here at CCGI. Good morning to Suzanne Nurse. Suzanne, is this your first session with us? Because I'm also not recalling your name from another session.
Yes, it is.
It is. And where are you from, Suzanne?
PSCU Credit Union.
PS. Oh, yes. Well, I'm so happy to have you, Suzanne, and to share with everyone. PSCU Credit Union is one of our more recent organizational members. Just last month, or during this month, I think it was, uh, everything was completed for PSCU Credit Union to become gold bundle members here with us at Caribbean Corporate Governance Institute. So I'm so pleased, Suzanne, to see you here today. And I look forward to all of your members being part of our global conference, because you would have seen we have now made that free to our members.
Yes, I saw that. Thanks so much.
Yes. Okay. And we are just 3 minutes away from our official start time. But as we wait on that time, let me also say hello and welcome to Daniela O'Connor. And
Hi, good morning. Good morning, everyone.
hi, Daniela. So just to share with everyone, Daniela was part of our working committee that helped produce the Trinidad and Tobago Corporate Governance Code 2024, which would be launched tomorrow. Daniela was one of the working committee. Saron had assisted us as project support for the committee to ensure that we've been able to revise the 2013 code. So tomorrow is going to be, a really full day for us. But I'm happy all is in place for that. And we do have a lot of persons registered to have a good turnout for tomorrow's session as well. We always start on time. I'm not seeing some of the persons who are registered for this session, but sometimes what they do is they come in just at the start time because they know I will normally do some opening remarks that takes up at least, 5 to 7 minutes. So we are seconds away from that start time now. So Quentra, let me ask at exactly the 11:30 start time for you to spotlight me so that we would have everything in place to start.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. My opening remarks are up. Great, and let's get the recording started as well. I'm not sure if that has started. There we go. Okay, so good morning, everyone. I am Kamala Rampersad de Silva, Chief Executive Officer of the Caribbean Corporate Governance Institute, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's session of our Conversations series. And I'm so pleased to have Gayle Allick Solomon with us for this session. This series was started 2 years ago. And in fact, Gayle's session was delivered, I think it was around the end of 2022. And we recognize the value of always assessing whether we have a good fit. And so I asked Gayle to address us on this topic again. We are live streaming part of today's session on our YouTube channel, and it is also being cast on LinkedIn. So hello to everyone who is online joining us on social media. And many thanks to all of you who have joined us here in the meeting room, our Zoom meeting room for today's conversations session. Also, let me say thanks to Warren Anderson, who is managing the live stream for us this morning and who has been doing some really excellent work with our social media support. So, hello and welcome to all of you. I would like to share that the Caribbean Corporate Governance Institute is a nonprofit membership organization, and we welcome everyone who wishes to join in our purpose of improving corporate governance practices in the region. We are pleased to say that we have membership reflecting countries not just from here in Trinidad and Tobago, but Jamaica, Barbados, Belize, St. Lucia, Guyana, the British Virgin Islands, St. Martin, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Grenada as well. We host a range of workshops, panel discussions, and issues to discuss evolving areas in governance. We have our signature event, which is Governance Week, and annually a 2-day global conference. All of these are held online to be able to easily facilitate our members from throughout the region. We also host one major physical end-of-year event. And this year, this event will be held in Guyana. We have also extended the event to a week of activities. There will be 2 physical workshops. The first on insurance and risk. The second one is on governance and compliance and will include a simulation from Harvard Business School. And then on the Friday evening, we will be hosting a panel discussion on effective board papers. This panel discussion is geared specifically to our corporate secretaries network, but we invite everyone who is involved in a boardroom, directors, aspiring directors, executive managers, because everyone plays a role in the preparation, ensuring the relevant information is available. So please register to join us for that session. Gayle will be one of our key speakers to present on this important topic in Guyana. And of course, the week culminates with the major event. It's a governance dinner and our end of year networking. It will be held on Saturday, 23rd, and the opening keynote will be delivered by CCGI's Global Ambassador, Professor Bob Garrett. All of the events will be held at Splashman's Resort, which is a beautiful and unique facility built around a man-made lake in Georgetown, Guyana. Registration is already open, so Those of you who may be interested to travel over to Guyana as well, do let us know. We have very limited space remaining for accommodation, but once you advise us of your intention, then we can give any further information in terms of whether we have availability or where there may be close locations that you would be able to stay. As I was sharing in the chat room before we started the session formally, tomorrow is a really important day for us here at CCGI as well. In collaboration with our partners, the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange and the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce, we will be launching the 2024 Trinidad and Tobago Corporate Governance Code. This is a significant event for us. It's been quite a bit of work over the last 2 years. We've had a working committee set up that's been revising this code, which was first published in 2013. And so we are really excited about this event tomorrow. It's going to begin with breakfast at 7 a.m. before we begin our formal proceedings at 8. But once the code is launched tomorrow, then you would be hearing a lot from us in terms of getting persons to adopt this code, because I think that the working committee did a phenomenal job, and you're going to see a lot of really useful guidance and principles and so that you'd be able to apply to your organizations. As we move on to our fifth global conference, which is coming up soon. In fact, it's the 5th and 6th of November and will be held online. I am thrilled to share that Angostura Limited has agreed to be our bronze sponsor. We are very thankful for the support that we always get from Angostura for our events, but particularly this conference. And this is one of the reasons that we made this decision to have the conference free for our members. The sponsorship helps cover some of our costs, but more so, this event is really going to be a very critical one for us. The opening keynote address will be President Amin Sarkisian, who is from Armenia, the 4th president of Armenia, and who wrote a really interesting book about small countries which were able to find ways to develop their societies so that they are competitive on the global market. And he shared his perspective, having traveled as a diplomat in many of these countries. I found it to be really inspiring reading, and I'm hopeful that we from the Caribbean region will be able to take a lot of the learnings from him and find ways to help ensure that we build our societies to what we want it to be. So we are so excited that the conference itself is going to feature at least 12 different countries. We do have speakers from Botswana, from Ireland, from the UK, from Switzerland, as well as within the region. So the agenda, the full agenda will be shared over the next few days, and we look forward to persons registering, and especially to having our members attend. So those of you who may not yet be a member of CCGI, please consider joining us and actively contribute to the conversation on how we can improve leadership and governance to achieve sustainable outcomes for our region. Persons may join us as individual members, or your companies may choose to pay for bundle membership, which can cover 6 to 12 members. And of course, as a member, you get discounted rates. So as I mentioned earlier, from time to time, you're surprised and you're allowed to attend absolutely free of charge. Now, I would like to move on to today's session. And just before we do so, because we do have a few persons in the room who are with us for the first time for a session, we always have a few housekeeping announcements. First, we ask that you ensure that your name is correctly captured on your screen, because we are in a Zoom meeting room, not a webinar. This means that all participants are easily able to engage freely with each other, and so we'd like everyone to be easily identifiable. We also ask, please, that you keep your microphones on mute throughout the session. During the presentation with Gayle, if you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please raise your hand using the virtual icon at the bottom of your screen, and we would help ensure that Gayle sees. Or if it is she asks for your interaction and you would like to speak, we ask that as soon as you finish your contribution, please mute your microphone again to minimize any disruptive noises in your background. And of course, you can ask questions or make comments in the chat feature, which would be brought to her attention. Finally, we'll be putting up a survey link towards the end of the session, and we would appreciate if you take 2 minutes and give us your feedback so that we can ensure we have your expectations in mind when we plan and execute our sessions. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today. That's Gayle Allick Solomon. Gayle is an attorney with over 20 years of combined experience in private practice and in the corporate arena. She has presented on several occasions on leadership and corporate governance, including here for us as well at the Caribbean Corporate Governance Institute, discussing matters such as maintaining good governance practice and introducing aspects of sustainability into the board agenda. Gayle is passionate about providing meaningful support to professional women and has served several times as a mentor for AmCham TT Women in Leadership Mentorship Program, including its last cohort. In 2024, she participated in a panel discussion with other female leaders in technology in honor of International Women's Day. Having earned a Master's of Arts degree from King's College in London, UK, also in EU and US copyright law, for which her dissertation won the Dixon Poon School of Law Prize for the best dissertation. She is currently completing an MBA with specialization in leadership and sustainability from the University of Cumbria in the UK. Gayle is a firm believer in the mantra, each one teach one, and that the greatest job of a leader is to create other leaders. Join Gayle for the conversations today because she truly demonstrates the kind of leadership that we'd like to see among our corporate secretaries. Gayle, we are so pleased to have you for today, and I'm passing on the virtual podium to you now.
Thank you so much, Kamla. Just making sure that you can hear me with a raise of your hand. Okay, great, wonderful. So good morning to you, Kamla, and good morning, as always, to your very hardworking team at CCGI. I also want to say a special good morning to all of our participants today. We are a very cozy number, I would call it, and for me, that makes for an even better conversation. Let me recognize as well always Saron. Saron is always in support of everything that the CCGI does as well, and it's something that I personally appreciate. So just want to say welcome to you, Saron, and to everyone who is online. Kamla mentioned, and she mentioned it in passing, but I really do want to re-emphasize the wonderful accomplishment it is for you and your team and your working group to have revised the corporate governance code. I mean, you spoke about 2 years like if it was nothing, but 2 years is a significant amount of time, which I know means a lot of effort went into it. And I just want to personally recognize that. I look forward to seeing, the revised code and what that means for us as corporate governance practitioners. So thank you again. Today, first of all, I always recognize whenever I have a conversation that is close to lunchtime that you have actually chosen to spend your time here with us. And if you're anything like me, I'm all about lunchtime. So I don't take for granted the fact that you are here. I really appreciate that. I do want to make this a conversation. And I appreciate that perhaps, for the flow of things, we may not always have the opportunity to stop and ask the question, but I encourage you, feel free to post things in the chat. Kamla is very good at picking up, trends and questions in the chat and comments in the chat and relaying it to us at the appropriate time. So if I don't see it, I know for sure she will. And definitely at the end of this, we're going to have the opportunity to have that kind of feedback and that kind of interaction. So I look forward to that as well. And Kamla, you're right. It's been almost exactly 2 years, a little over 2 years, since I first presented on this. And, for the one or two of you who were here 2 years ago when I did, you will find that not a whole lot has changed. And that is because I think the conversation that we're about to have is still as relevant and pertinent today in 2024 as it was in September 2022. And the information, I think, is still very key and crucial. So I trust that you will come along in this conversation with me so that we can make it meaningful for everyone who's on board. I want to hold up my hand first of all and say I'm still a relative newbie in this role, in the sense that while I have been, I guess, working as an attorney for almost 21 years now to the day almost, I have actually only been a corporate secretary for 6 years. And I say only, but it's not insignificant, I think. But I think it's still, it's still fresh enough for me where I'm able to recognize where I've come from personally, but also recognize where the profession is going. And I'm very excited about it. And I'll share a little bit more about my personal journey as we go along. I also want to say welcome to everyone in the room, not just from the perspective of those who are corporate secretaries, but maybe particularly for those who are not. So maybe you're a board director, maybe you're in management at an organization, and you just want to understand maybe what a good fit as a corporate secretary is supposed to look like. Or you want to play a role in ensuring that the corporate secretary that you do have or that you're about to hire is, inducted in the right way and can really begin to add that value. So, like I said, I thank you very much for recognizing that this may be useful, and I hope that it's not only useful, but it's practical for you as we go along. So, I think I've said a lot in that opening. So let me start with sharing the slides that I have prepared. And if you will give me just 1 second here, I will do exactly that. All right, can we confirm that we're seeing it?
Yes.
All right. Are you seeing it in presentation mode though? That's what I'm not sure
No,
about.
so yeah, you
All
need
right.
to go
Give me
to
1
slide share.
second. I'm stopping for a second. Give me a moment.
Okay, no problem. And just to let persons know, as Gayle set up, that during today's session, she has a couple polls that she would be asking you as well. So you're going to be participating to give some feedback to ensure that there's a really wholesome look at this issue of, finding your fit.
So what I'm trying to do here is,
Right. So if
what
you
I
go
should
to
say,
the bottom of the screen,
and that's my problem, is that I'm not able to move this.
mouse
So
lower
maybe your
down.
tech people can, yeah, the control panel is what is preventing me from doing that.
Oh, would you like us to share the slides for you then?
You can do that. Let's just get started quickly so that I stop wasting too much of our precious time.
Okay, sure. Quantra, let me know if you're going to be able to do it, if you would like me to handle it instead.
No problem, I'll do it.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Quantra. Hi, Aisha. No, you haven't missed anything at all, I don't think.
Well, she must the lovely introduction of you. And, and all the information about our global conference coming up, but you guys would be
That's
getting a lot
true.
of details on those. All right.
Hi, can you guys
Okay,
confirm
great.
that you're seeing this?
Yes.
We're seeing it. Thank you very, very much. All right. So a couple of years ago when I presented this, I did call it Now What? And I maintain that title because even though we're talking about finding your fit as a corporate secretary, I think for me where it kind of starts is, when you sit down in that role, or as I mentioned, some of you may be in management or looking for a corporate secretary, it's really just to have this conversation about exactly what are we looking for. So moving ahead, we're going to see what our agenda is today. Before we see our agenda, sorry, I meant to do a little bit of an introduction of myself that is not part of my bio. And that is just to say that I'm a wife of one, a mother of three, all boys. So, feel free to offer up some prayers for me on a daily basis. I am an attorney at law, but more than that, I'm an introvert, believe it or not. And that plays a role in the way in which I think I relate to people, and I relate to this role that I'm in. It is a dual reporting line role in that it's general counsel and corporate secretary. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we get into the conversation. But by far, the most important aspect of myself is that I love ice cream. I thought I would share that with everyone. On a Friday, you can find me usually by the nearest Haagen-Dazs with a 2-scoop. So that's just a little bit about me. Thanks, Quantrell. So as we move into the agenda a little bit, you will see that we're going to talk about 6 main areas. So first of all, that whole idea, okay, so you're a corporate secretary. What happens now? We'll talk a little bit about the role, talk a little bit about maybe some of the skills that are appropriate when you come into that role or skills that you may need to develop. We'll spend some time talking about how to establish and maintain your relevance in the role. I think that's very important. I wanted to also introduce the aspect of a strategic partnership with management and the fact that the traditional way of looking at governance and the corporate secretarial space is changing, and what you can do to establish your own relevance in the particular situation that you may be in. I also want to look at what's the bottom line, because at the end of the day, it's a role or a department or an area that is seen as not revenue generating. And so there is maybe a little bit of a misunderstanding as to whether there is actual monetary value that can be added by this role. And I want to argue very strongly that there is, and show you a little bit of what that can look like. Governance Professional 2.0 is what I use to introduce this idea of successorship and mentorship, which is very close to my heart. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And finally, I will recap and leave you with 5 action points for your transition into the role as corporate secretary, or as I mentioned, understanding that we have a cross section. If you're looking for a corporate secretary, or you have one and you want to help enhance the skills of that person, what those action points can be. All right, so moving right along. So you're a corporate secretary. Let's talk a little bit about what that means. So very often the role of the corporate secretary, or the decision to hire a corporate secretary or to confirm someone in the role, is made by the board of directors. That has been my experience. But again, recognizing that there is a cross section of organizations that may be represented here today. There may be startup organizations, family run organizations, for-profit, not-for-profit, large conglomerates, smaller companies. But any which way you take it, the role of a corporate secretary is no less important, no matter the size of the organization. And, I wanted to just talk a little bit about what it means actually to be a corporate secretary. You will find that in this conversation, I don't want to focus too much on the hard skills of the role. So if you have a job description, the things that it says on paper, that's one thing. And, it's probably pretty straightforward to get someone who fulfills those descriptors. But I wanted to talk a little bit more on the softer side and be a little more real with you, certainly in terms of my experience and in terms of what you may find as you inculcate yourself into the role. So understanding how you identify yourself in that role is important. You're going to hear me talk quite a lot about credibility. That's a big aspect, in my view, of being an effective corporate secretary. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the lonely nature of the job, right? And it is not something that's very well understood. I certainly didn't understand it before I became a corporate secretary, but when I did 6 years ago, and I always tell this story, and I always tell it, and I'm never embarrassed to tell it. During the first week on the job, every afternoon at 4 o'clock, I would close that door, and I would shed a tear or two, or just sit and sigh, because I felt like the weight of the role just came down on me. It's one of those situations where immediately everyone expects you to know what you're doing. Everyone expects you to inculcate knowledge and impart knowledge, I should say. And be able to direct exactly what needs to be done. And you are still trying to acclimatize yourself to the fact that you're in this role. But part of the solitude is also because of the fact that you have so much information. You're exposed to so much information throughout the length and breadth of the organization. And I'll come to talk about that a little bit more later on. But, as a corporate secretary, because you have a particular perspective, both from the eye of or the lens of the board, as well as the lens of management, you're often the first person to know when a decision is going to be made or that a decision has been made. You're often the first person to get information before it becomes public. And so, there's a lot of confidentiality that is required there, and that's an absolute non-negotiable. As a trained attorney, I've already been accustomed to that for many years because, the confidentiality is just the nature of the job that you do, right? So, but I understand how for someone coming into the role, it may be a bit difficult to know when they can share information, how they could share information, if they should share information. And so, as I mentioned at the start, the solitude of the role could be a little bit daunting. But I encourage you to work through, especially if you're a new corporate secretary, work through those feelings because it hones you, I think, later on for handling even more information and understanding that the role that you play is a critical one. The other thing that I would say is that emotional intelligence is absolutely invaluable in this role, and not just emotional intelligence at its core, but many things that are sort of related to that, right? So self-awareness and self-direction, the ability to build, establish and build on relationships and maintain relationships. That's a huge part of it. Now, not everyone, in my view, is or may feel like they're naturally suited to this role. I certainly didn't. I'll hold up my hand and tell you, I actually didn't want this role. I was perfectly happy to just be general counsel, but the two came together. And so, I knew I had to rise to that challenge. But it is not easy because it takes a particular attitude, in my view. And I don't think you have to start with that attitude, but you have to certainly build it as you go along. So building those skills, yes, Rachel, I know you would. Building those skills as you go along becomes even more important. Some of the skills I'm talking about are organizational skills, diplomacy, that interpersonal relationship management, confidentiality, as I mentioned before, becoming discerning, building an instinct for what is in front of you and what needs to go in front of the board. And it's so much coming at you at one time that it can begin to feel overwhelming if you don't know how to deal with it. So that's why I talked about emotional intelligence. Being able to self-regulate has been one of the things that I think is most helpful for me personally in this role, because you can find yourself dealing with all kinds of different things at once. And again, both on the information side and also on the actual doing of the administrative and other tasks that attend to this position. It can all just come together and feel like you're not quite sure which way is up, and that's okay. Sometimes it's okay to be uncomfortable. I keep saying that. I would say skills acquisition is a must. As I mentioned at the start, not everybody is cut out for this role, and I think that's quite okay if you're not cut out for it or you feel you're not cut out for it. But this is where your own self-worth and your own self-value comes into play, because you would want to upskill yourself. You would want to kind of get yourself to where you feel you need to be. And I think one of the things I always say is that you should advocate for your own training as a corporate secretary, because it's only going to enhance all these other softer skills that we're talking about, but even some of the actual skills needed to do the job, right? So I always advocate for actual skills acquisition. But some of the things that we don't talk about is or include things like courage. A corporate secretary is often called upon to be courageous in ways that you might not immediately relate to or understand. And you may be tasked with delivering bad news or delivering news that either the board or management may not want to hear. You may be tasked with guiding management away from a particular course of action because of the implications that it can have from a governance perspective. And not everybody, trust me, not everybody understands or appreciates that. But that is where you build your mettle. That's where your diplomacy comes in. That's where your credibility comes to play. And so it's important at the start of your journey, or even if you're already in your journey. And I want to be very clear, I'm not speaking here only to people who have just come into the role, but maybe people who've been in the role for a while. But you just recognize that there are other things that you can do. I think that's quite okay. I would say as well that while you don't need to be an attorney to be a corporate secretary, it's not a requirement. What I have found, and I know some colleagues of mine who feel the same, but what I have found is that that legal training and that ability to be analytical, to anticipate things. So, for example, especially if you have a litigation background, sometimes you can see, that brown stuff coming to hit that spinning thing above your head, and you can hedge it off, with that knowledge. You can hedge off certain things. You can guide management differently or guide the board differently in a way that you wouldn't be able to, I think. I shouldn't say wouldn't be able to, but it's certainly enhanced if you have had that legal experience. So I have found that it is useful and helpful, but by no means is it absolutely necessary. I do believe the majority of the skills of being a corporate secretary are softer skills, believe it or not, that mean that anybody can